A new product gets added to the catalog. Let's call it SKU 9. Now, two departments need to know about this: the packer and the courier, with each one running on its own machine. Sounds simple enough, right? But then somebody asks the question that always arrives later. Who actually got the message? Now, that question is usually expensive. Think about it. The message was sent out to whoever happened to be listening, and nothing about sending it recorded who took it. So to answer the question, you have to build something extra: a delivery tracker, correlation identifiers threaded through every single hop. You need a tracing backend just to query it. The message itself was cheap, but the answer? That was the expensive part. This case, though, never built any of that, because the answer was written down as it happened. A puppet is a character in a program, a named who, defined by his verbs, what he knows how to do, and his journal, which is the diary of everything he has done, written as sentences in order. That pair is his identity.
The character doing the announcing here is the herald, declared a stage manager V2, which means he is one character with a body on several machines. He is solid where he writes, and there he is called the director. He is a replica elsewhere, and there he is called a cast. Now, the obvious move would be to just announce the product once, to everybody. But that is not available here, and the reason is really worth hearing because it's not a limitation. It is the direct consequence of wanting an answer. You see, every message names an addressee, and every acknowledgement comes back naming who answered. So if you send one message addressed to all, you get back exactly one acknowledgement from all, which names nobody in particular. Worse than that, addressing all presumes you have a closed list of receivers, and a system that grows just does not have one.
So the herald does the exact opposite. He names each receiver one directed message at a time, and each message carries its own identity taken from the thing being announced, the product itself. His journal records this in 3 sentences, and each one is doing a very different job. The first says the herald added product SKU 9, which is the fact itself, stated in his own voice, before anyone else has even heard of it. The second sentence says he told new product to packer PK1 once SKU 9, and written out it reads, tell new product to packer PK1 once SKU 9. Notice how the addressee PK1 sits right there inside the sentence, rather than in some routing table somewhere else. Then, the third sentence says he told new product to courier crow1 once SKU 9. Here, the addressee changed, but the identity did not, because both of these messages are announcing the very same product. Let's look at the traveling check. Here is the part that really surprises people. The two departments are not in the same state. The packer has never heard of SKU 9, while the courier already registered it yesterday. We have one message, but 2 entirely different situations. Because of this, the message carries something besides just values. It carries a check, a question to be answered right where it lands. The check does not run at the sender. It travels inside the envelope and it runs at the receiver. And it asks, is this product unknown here? At the packer, the answer is yes. So he registers the product and then acknowledges. At the courier, the answer is no. So he acknowledges and does nothing else. Either way, the effect happened exactly once. And if the same message were delivered twice, because transports do that sometimes, its identity is exactly the same. So the second delivery is recognized and never run again. That is the whole reason the check has to travel. The sender simply cannot know the state of each receiver, and it really should not pretend to. The decision belongs to whoever receives it, and that is a claim about where the decision gets made, not a claim that concurrency went away. The 2 receivers still act independently, at their own pace, which is exactly what you want when one is registering a product and the other has absolutely nothing to do. Now for reading the written answer. Getting back to our original question, who was told? The herald does not run a query. He doesn't consult a tracker, a correlation identifier, or a tracing backend. He simply opens his own journal and reads the next 2 lines. The first says packer PK1 acknowledged SKU 9, and written out it reads tell ac SKU 9 from packer PK1. It's the exact same shape as the tell that earned it, with the answer named directly inside the sentence. The second one says courier CR1 acknowledged SKU 9. And with that line, both receivers are accounted for by name, which is the whole question answered. Those 2 sentences are the answer. Not a metric, not a dashboard, not a count. Just 2 sentences, each naming an addressee, in the very same language as everything else in that journal. Nobody built that audit trail. It was written, 1 sentence at a time, exactly as it happened. Sending one message per receiver sounds wasteful. If I have 50 departments, that is 50 messages instead of one. Why is that better? Because one broadcast buys you delivery and costs you the answer. The 50 messages are cheap. What you get for them is 50 acknowledgments that each name someone. And the alternative was never really one message. It was one message plus the tracker you build afterwards to work out who received it, and the correlation identifiers you thread through everything just to make that tracker possible. The check does not run at the sender. It is not a filter applied before sending, deciding who deserves the message. It is a question carried along and answered at each destination. Exactly once describes the effect, not the delivery. The message may well arrive twice. That is a transport's business. What happens exactly once is the registration, because a repeated delivery carries the same identity and is recognized as already applied. None of this removes concurrency. The two receivers act independently, at their own pace, and that is deliberate. The packer registering a product has nothing to do with the courier. What the traveling check buys is narrower and more useful than no more race conditions. It buys this. The decision is made where the state actually is, instead of at a sender guessing from far away, and a repeated delivery is recognized instead of applied twice. Nor are the bodies of one character in perfect step with each other. A replica can be a moment behind the one that writes. The claim here is about where the answer is written, not about making a distributed system behave like a single machine. No broadcast, no tracker, no correlation identifier, no tracing backend. No closed list of members that someone has to maintain. No filtering at the sender. Nobody decided from far away what each receiver already knew. We also have to consider machines that join later. A machine that comes online after all this is not a problem to solve. When it becomes relevant, the herald names it in a fresh, directed message, and its acknowledgment joins the same page of the same journal. So who knows about SKU 9 is never a closed list that someone maintains. It is an open, growing record of what was said and who answered. The usual reflex when a system spreads across machines is to add something that watches it and reports back. This case does the opposite. It makes each participant say, in its own program, what it did and what it heard. And then the reporting layer has nothing left to report, because the question, who was told, stopped being a query and became an act of reading.